Married people who revived a dead intercourse life, how'd you do it?
Experience 1. Have some frank conversations. Our issue was that my wife felt so much pressure to have intercourse, so if I tried to initiate intercourse with her, it would result in her automatically declining. This was regardless of whether I was seducing her or not, though. It didn't help, though, that I was trying to initiate a lot, as I felt like if we only ever had intercourse maybe 1 out of the 20 times I tried, that I need to try harder. I'd kiss her, it meant I wanted intercourse. I'd do more chores than usual, this meant I wanted intercourse. It got to the point where she was thinking anything nice I did was part of some kind of sexual transaction. She also felt like saying no would make me upset, so saying no made her feel guilty and inadequate. So, we had a big emotional chat. We then swapped to trying her initiating. Intercourse didn't happen for a few months. She began to trust that I wasn't just always trying to instigate or earn intercourse when I did nice things. Then she initiated. Then she initiated again. Things got better, now I can initiate as well, and we're probably having intercourse averaging out at 3 to 10 times a month, which feels right for both of us most of the time. She also feels happy to say no. It's not such a bad thing, as we probably have intercourse in a few days anyway. It threw her a bit a few times, but I've even said no after she's initiated, usually when I've been unwell, but we are at the point that it's fine. It wasn't plain sailing, there were ups and downs, but communication was key. Experience 2. I have the woman's perspective here, but perhaps a bit more of an extreme example. My ex and I grew up in a purity culture and married as virgins. We were quite mismatched, but I didn't learn that until later. Purity culture affects men and women very differently. I was afraid of intercourse. I was taught that thinking about it or touching myself was disgusting and upsetting to God. But then I got married and I'm supposed to just flip a switch and suddenly enjoy it? I had a lot of anxiety around intercourse and my ex didn't know what he was doing either, so it wasn't fun or intimate for me. It was another chore I had to take care of to keep him in a good mood. He was prone to moping. I also needed a lot of time to prepare myself mentally. So, if my ex just sprang into action, I would turn him down. I explained this, but he would forget, so I was always anxious around bedtime and couldn't relax. Also, like you mentioned, every little thing felt like a transaction. Sometimes, I wanted comfort and safety and affection. Cuddling, a hug, a kiss. But he always pushed it too far, and I'd withdraw and feel guilty. I just wanted a hug, and he thought he'd get more. So, I didn't want to initiate more than a quick peck on the lips half the time because it meant dropping whatever I was doing to attend to him. He was also terrible about groping me. He felt it was fine to grab my boob or slap my butt even after constantly asking him not to, even when it hurt. I felt like an object. I was open with him at times about everything, which isn't easy when you're dancing around religious values, and the other party doesn't know what foreplay is. During 10 years of marriage, there was a bit of an improvement, but not enough for me to feel at ease and initiate. The few times I initiated, I ended up disappointed. As a spouse, he was generally quite gentle in every other aspect. We got along well and never really fought. He never forced me to have intercourse in the traditional sense of force, but there was always guilt in rejecting him, there was always the wifely duty to perform. There was always the guilt. Eventually, I deconstructed our beliefs on my own, saw the connections between the religion and purity culture making me miserable, and after a couple of years hoping he would deconstruct and work on our issues, I asked for a divorce. It's taken a lot of work to view intercourse in a healthy and fun way. I don't know if I'll ever be at 100%. But it's definitely improved for me. Experience 3. We had a tough conversation about why the other half would decline intercourse. It led to timing, environment, and effort. I used to go to bed when I planned to sleep, which is when my partner would pounce. When my partner had his morning shower, that's when I'd pounce. Neither of those times worked for the other. We made sure to be more considerate of the other, little things like making coffee in the morning or picking up a little something they like at the grocery store. Small things. Communicate our needs better to the other. No mind games. No winning the conversation or picking fights. Create a pleasant environment. The effort, my partner would present his boner and I'd be expected to jump on it. Doesn't work that way. We taught each other how to turn the other on without even touching genitals. It takes effort. Unfortunately, we've had to live apart for some months due to moving jobs and locations, etc., but when we do see each other, we're like rabbits. Still, time, environment, and effort. It's worked for us. Experience 4. We had an open and honest talk about it. I was the one with the tank libido, and I had good enough reasons for it, but the fact that my lack of interest in intercourse had an identifiable cause didn't do much to bridge the gap between us. So, we talked about it like adults. One of those we both need to be completely honest with ourselves and each other for this to do us any good, and that means we can't be pricks to each other for what we say tonight. Talks where we know feelings are going to be hurt and we may feel like we're being blamed, so we had to agree ahead of time that if we were hurt or angered by something, we'd acknowledge that feeling but not let it derail the conversation. Being fully open about our own feelings about intercourse, the importance it plays for each of us as individuals, and the impact it has on our relationship helped a lot. It was easier for me to see his desire for intercourse not as he wants to get off and he wants to use me to do it, but as physical intimacy is an important part of how he feels emotionally connected, and he was able to see my lack of intercourse drive not as she's unattracted to me and rejecting me, but as her medication prevents her from spontaneously getting in the mood and her depression and anxiety prevent her from believing she'll get into it if we start. In the end, he worked on understanding that I wasn't rejecting him, I was saying no to a particular act. I worked on understanding that just because I didn't feel like boning at that exact moment didn't mean that I wasn't going to get into it as we went on, and we both worked on being better communicators. Experience 5. I've made this comment multiple times. My wife, as many do, said that intercourse starts hours before bedtime for her. I took this to heart and did the following. 1. Casual touching all the time. 2. Regular kisses throughout the day. 3. Hugs whenever we pass. 4. I love you, said regularly and for real. 5. Listening when she talks. This has resulted in intercourse once a month at best to twice or more a week. No lie, we went 8 months without intercourse at one point. In addition, instead of me initiating all the time, she does about every 4th time, which is an improvement. Plus, we're closer and can communicate better. It's gotten to the point that our kids at home, 16-year-old boy/girl twins, have noticed and are a little grossed out, lol. Experience 6. You have to talk it out. Be absolutely honest about it. Usually, it happens because one person loses their intercourse drive and that leads to the other losing it too as they start accepting that it won't happen, and they stop trying. There is always a reason, and at first, there may be a denial that nothing is wrong because it avoids confrontation or the acknowledgement that something is wrong with the relationship, but you have to break through to that point for any hope to talk honestly about it. Then it's down to working the issue out. That can also be hard in itself. Sometimes people think that talking it out is enough, but when it comes down to it, things still don't feel right. It's important to get the seriousness of the situation across. It's not just not having intercourse right now, it's the relationship ending if the issue doesn't work itself out. It's resolving that you won't be the person in a sexless relationship which would doom you to never having intercourse again, or very little for the rest of your life. When you put it like that, if the other person is actually willing to save the relationship, they'll work on it more. It's fine to not want to have intercourse with someone, you're never obligated to, but it should be communicated to a partner and the reason should be worked on. If there is no solution, the relationship should end. You cannot expect fidelity from someone you're refusing intimacy to, because it goes beyond just busting a nut. Being constantly rejected in a relationship makes the other person feel like crap too. Experience 7. My wife was experiencing a very dark period of bad mental health coupled with some last traumas that had started resurfacing when we moved in together. It was bad, and when I say bad, I mean she had thoughts of self-harm and intercourse was just never anything that crossed her mind, especially with painful and traumatic memories coming up. The first year we loved together we barely ever had intercourse, and it was honestly pretty bad when we did. All I ever got from trying to talk about it was pushback. One day we got into a large argument, and I decided to just write down all my thoughts about it. In short, what I basically ended up telling her was that I would do whatever was needed for her to be comfortable and to make peace, but that I will not end up in a sexless marriage like my parents. I told her that I didn't think she was fully aware of how she had been pulling away physically or how her past trauma was affecting her. I said that there isn't anything wrong, creepy, or weird about wanting to make love to your partner, and that I wanted her to seek therapy for her sexual trauma. There were other points and back and forth, but ultimately, she was receptive. I realized I also had to learn to adjust my expectations as I am a very sexual person. Eventually, she sought serious mental help and began working on her issues not just sexually but mentally and spiritually as well. She got into counseling, we both learned to communicate our wants and needs better, and she also learned to voice when she was struggling with her trauma and unable to meet my needs. I expected the absolute worst, but when we were finally able to talk about it, there was no yelling, name-calling, or hurt feelings. After that conversation, and even before any real work had started, I knew I wanted to marry her. Fast forward several years, and we're married 6 years this year, and with a much healthier and fulfilling intercourse life. At one point on our honeymoon, I had actually thought how miserable I'd be if I listened to the idiots over at our /dead bedrooms who made fun of me for not wanting to leave. There's always hope if you both care for each other. Experience 8. It was a long, windy road to get there, but essentially my husband started listening and acknowledging my full burnout, the toll the full mental load was taking on me, and how he needed to be a more equal parent and partner. After that started and the resentment lessened, I got time to go to the gym, to look after myself better, to read my erotic fiction books. Before this, we would have scheduled, by me, unbeknownst to him, intercourse 1 to 2 times a month. Usually quickies. Rarely enjoyable for me. Now it's easily 4-5x a week, sometimes twice a day. Multiple orgasms for me. The best advice I can offer. Not having enough intercourse in your relationship is a relationship problem, not an intercourse problem. Experience 9. It was never dead, but we went from pretty good intercourse to great intercourse. Frequency is still about the same, but quality has gone up for both of us. We had to live apart for a year while relocating. During that time, we talked a lot. We started really getting into the specifics of what we like during intercourse and what doesn't work so great. We found positions that were easier to maintain for longer sessions and started paying close attention to each other's tells. I've always had a hard time getting there, but he's learned to play my body like a fiddle, and I've upped my skills as well. Pretty much all came down to talking in depth about our likes and dislikes and learning to read each other's bodies. Experience 10. Communication and empathy are a big part of reviving a dead bedroom, but it also comes down to hormonal balance, especially as you get older. Depression and anxiety will murder your intercourse drive. My wife and I have been working together, along with our doctors, to find balance, and the spark has been reignited. It is amazing what a balanced brain chemistry will do when you've been out of balance for so long. The rest lies in your ability to be a couple and have meaningful conversations, serving each other and not just going through the motions of living together. You don't have to be spontaneous or overly romantic, you just need to connect emotionally. That is what keeps the attraction alive. Knowing you are supported and loved and vice versa, just my opinion.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.